Hello.
Hey, everybody.
Sorry we've been gone so long.
Don't call it a comeback.
Yeah.
We've been here all along.
We took a vacation.
We took a vacation. It was extended. Originally, it wasn't even going to be as long as it was, but we're drunk, lazy idiots. We couldn't make it happen.
We literally took vacations, though. It's not just like a hiatus.
No. We actually took vacations. I was driving.
Yeah.
I was driving around the country, and I saw these boys IRL.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Florida.
Yeah. Matt,
yeah, we haven't done a podcast since before I went to Florida.
That's true.
Yeah.
Wow.
But we're fucking back now, baby. That's what matters.
We're all tanned. We're ripped. We're rested. We've got a newfound vigor and a newfound spring in our step. So we're ready to go back to the content mill and become wan and, and pasty and sickly again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ripped, but it's from stretch marks.
They're your tiger stripes, dude.
Exactly.
They're your tiger stripes. We were at a camp, and it was funny when we were all there was a dock, and we were all jumping off of it, and it was funny how much we were like, is this dock going to just
collapse?
Are we gonna have a mini Miami on our hands here?
Too soon. To be fair, that dock is old, and there was like 8 people on it.
Yeah. Oh, there were mad people.
Just us 3.
Yeah.
No, like I said, we're svelte and yeah.
If we each had 15 more pounds on us, it might have toppled.
That's definitely possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, this feels good to be back, fam.
Yes, it does. It's weird. I'm nervous again.
I know. The nerves are back.
Like I'm fucking rusty.
We're doing it.
I'm not nervous at all.
Yeah.
Not even one bit.
Nice. Well, that's because you're hanging out with your friends via your background.
Having fun.
Yeah, these are my real friends behind me.
So I think the plan for the episode. This is the Spinecrackers podcast, by the way. And
right. I'm Matt.
Gabe.
Paul.
And we're talking about books again.
Only this time abstractly.
Exactly. In the general sense. Literally.
Yeah.
Not a specific book. Oh, by the way, I should say at the beginning here, if you are subscribed to our Patreon page, you can see some glimpses from our vacation that I posted there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Might only be one or two.
What was secretly recorded and posted?
No. I showed it to you, dude. You gave me
I know the one. Matt, you know it too.
I know.
It was the badminton.
The badminton
game. The clip from the badminton
listen,
game.
I did not acquit myself well in that video, and I just want to say that, that's not representative of my actual game. Right,
I don't
Paul?
know about. I don't.
What the fuck are you talking about, Paul?
I'm just saying
beast,
it was more of a badminton tweak than a game.
Twitch.tv/Matt playing badminton.
Dude, I'm good at badminton. Shut up. I'm good.
Good. It was all good.
I think
Paul's
did you beat me one time?
I did.
I beat you a few times, dude.
Yeah,
no,
fucking
you beat me once.
That's not true.
Did you beat me twice? I lost 3 games total.
Wow. Someone hasn't been thinking about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul is very competitive, and you're like
about myself.
You get locked into this like the flow zone, and then you're like, I'm playing 20 games of badminton in a row.
Listen, winning games is the only real joy I have in my life.
And producing top tier content for all you people out there.
Right.
Nah.
It's also a game to him. He's the Joker.
That's true. He's the podcast gamer Joker.
Sith Joker.
Sith Joker, Coolman,
Sith Joker,
Sauron.
Sauron.
Coolman Sauron.
Dude, what would be scarier than Sauron? And then he
Coolman
just takes
Sith.
a big, juicy hit of Coolman full air.
Yeah. What if Sauron just like invented the jewel and he's just in the tower just
And they're just like the smoke of Mordor, and it's just him just vaping
This is
incredibly
jewel
hard.
smoke.
Yeah.
Takes a huge jewel hit, and he's just like, I'm gonna go get these hobbits.
Yeah, he has that fuzzy voice from the smoke. Dude, I hate that fuzzy smoke voice. It always makes me feel like my throat's so dry when I even just hear someone do it. Do it, Gabe.
What's the fuzzy
Do
smoke?
what, dude?
What? Oh, that one, yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, ew, I don't like it. I don't like it. Your voice is aerosoled. It's weird.
Yeah, it's like a worse version of inhaling fucking the shit that's in balloons. Why can't I think of it? Helium.
Helium.
The shit that's in balloons.
Listen, we've been out for a little while. We're
We're
regaining
not.
our point. We're figuring out words again.
We're not totally sharp. We're not perfectly sharp.
I love helium's rare now, right? You can't.
I think so. Yeah, you can't just.
You're
go
not
buy it
allowed to
you
just
used
like.
to.
Man, what's going on?
This is
Really? I did not know that. You can't
That-
like create helium?
No, you can't. What do you mean create it?
Well, how did they get it into the tanks?
I mean, someone created it, but not just like me and you in our garage. Or it's a naturally occurring element, right?
Yeah. And they harvest it
From who knows where.
for and there's
helium
where my
farms.
yeah.
The ozone layer.
But yeah,
They-
no, you can't just go get it anymore. Like
Weird.
I feel like you used to be able to just go like fucking Ace Hardware and pick up some helium.
Yeah, it literally used to just be like Party City, man. Just, you can just go make balloon animals and it's fine, but there's some sort of like curtailing of how much you can buy.
The bottom line
I'm blaming
is,
the libs.
This is
It's
fascism.
probably the libs.
Fascism has come
It's-
to America.
It is the libs and it's also the fascists at
No,
once.
the libs are the real fascists.
You're
Dude,
right,
get with
horseshoe.
it. Come on.
I'm sorry, dude. Man, where have I been?
This is fascism in America. I will say, dude, this is gonna be controversial, but when I was in New York, because I was coming from Iowa, I was absolutely floored and genuinely sort of pissed about how intense the mask shit still is in New York. I literally
Specifically
had to
New
get
York City, right?
Specifically the city, yeah. I had to
Yeah.
get my fucking temperature taken before I went into fucking restaurants. You can't just go sit at a bar, and I was like, this is fascism in America.
Yeah, I know. My favorite. I
Yeah.
love getting that little gun pointed at my
I was like,
forehead.
get the fuck out of my face, dude. What the hell?
Yeah.
And I'm vaxxed, dude. I had my vax cards. I'll whatever.
It just makes Cuomo really horny to everyone getting their temperature taken.
Cuomo
over
just has a
and over.
constant ticker feed of everyone in New York City's temperature.
Oh yeah,
he's
he
got
does.
like everyone
Like,
getting their temperature taken at like the Eckards and shit on CCTV, and he's just hard in his office.
That's his
I'm
cape.
keeping everyone so safe.
Oh, God. With his pierced nipples, just rubbing them.
Yeah, confirmed or
He
not?
definitely
I'm
he
pretty
definitely
sure
has fucking
confirmed.
pierced.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think.
And he's got the
What else could
crossbar.
that be?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
confirmed.
Confirmed.
In my
dude.
mind, it's confirmed. It's headcanon.
Yeah. Yeah. In my ideal world, he's got the crossbar nipple piercings.
Definitely. So do you guys want to talk about books or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is going to be an episode where we just kind of miscellaneously talk about random topics in and around literature and online literature communities and fucking our own takes on, whatever, various questions. We did, not mad about it, but we did send out a call for viewer questions, listener questions. And, didn't get too many. I'll say that. I'll put it that way. Although,
The ones we did get though were pretty big names.
oh yeah, so you guys will hear some of those today. So
Yeah. It's quality over quantity, I guess. So,
Exactly.
in a way,
Yeah.
I'm excited.
yeah, it's gonna be great. So where do we want to start? You guys want? What do you want to start with? Should we just start? Should we talk about the podcast? Should we talk about?
Let's talk about how the podcast came to be.
Yeah. So this question,
How about that?
this question came in from Thomas Pynchon on Instagram. Why did you guys start the Spinecrackers podcast?
I love it.
Tell us that story. I love the
Yeah.
show.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thanks, Thomas. Thanks for the question. Who wants to
Matt, do you
take a
wanna
crack
go?
at that?
Me? Okay,
Or
well,
I'll go. Do you want to go? I'll go.
go, Paul.
Okay. Do you want to go?
It's all you, baby.
Well, it was COVID. It was birthed out of COVID, and we were talking on Zoom a lot. Sometimes just like getting drunk for 10 hours straight.
Yeah.
Right in the beginning, it was just like
More than
reconnecting,
sometimes.
talking more than we have in years because of COVID, which was a
Mhm.
blessing. And then I don't know exactly like to pinpoint how it came about, but Matt and I were just talking about how we like to read fiction books, and Gabe was like, "I stopped reading fiction books."
Yeah.
And we were like,
Second conversation there.
Yeah, that's maybe a different topic. We can circle back to.
Yeah,
that.
but I mean,
I didn't
basically,
read
we
fiction for like 10 years.
yeah, but we basically were like, well, let's start a book club anyway, and let's get you to read some fiction books. And then after, I don't know, maybe like 10 of our own book club books, we decided, we were talking like maybe we could do a podcast,
Yeah.
and then it turned
Yeah.
into that.
The usual momentum of like anyone says, right? You know.
We were like, we're
Eventually, you're
funny,
like-
people will like us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The hubris started to collect. We're like, we are funny.
We're so fucking.
This could be huge.
This is gonna be fucking.
I'm seeing dollar signs with this shit.
Do you believe how funny we were in that last book club?
Oh, I can't believe it.
Just
So,
like, we were way funnier than fucking PewDiePie, dude. We could totally do this.
well, okay. I feel like I like this because this kind of branches out and everything. I do think, and this is, and I, whatever. That there is a dearth of good book-related content.
Yes.
To use a annoying word, but like of good analysis and like just genuinely like fun and good just other appreciators of books out there to listen to
Yeah, that's again
in general.
Like I said, like you said, this topic will probably lead into many others. But yeah, I think we all kind of agreed that like no specific shots fired yet at this point in the show, but
Yeah.
that the general level of discourse and like I don't know, just discourse in terms of like book analysis and book reviewing and stuff on YouTube and on podcasts and stuff like that was kind of trash.
Yeah.
And we thought, we have at least have something to say here. None of us are, formally trained in literary analysis, but we're all, whatever. We've read a lot. We're educated.
And we're fans.
And we're fans, dude.
Yeah. So that was it. That's the one genuine sentiment I had like about starting it was like, jokes aside about, three white dudes inevitably creating a podcast or whatever.
Because we're the smartest and we have the best things to say.
Yeah, and we do think that. But in a relative sense, I think I was like, damn, I think we could certainly I know we could do better than what I've because we sought this shit out. I mean, I did anyway, I spent a decent amount of time watching, I guess specifically booktubers, which is different, I guess, than like a podcast by a long shot, but
Yeah.
because there are better podcasts about books than there are like YouTube essayists people.
Yes. I mean, the one thing that I will say about, and again, we'll probably come back to this in some more detail later, but the one thing that I'll say about the difference between like the booktube world and the literary podcast world is that, like you said, Matt, I think there are good literarily oriented podcasts out there, but a lot of them don't just kind of do what we do, which is just every episode they talk about a different book. It's like, they do like, reading groups, or they talk about like authors, and like they talk about, literary movements and stuff like that, which is great, and that's an important thing to do. But there wasn't a lot of sort of, at least that I found, drop those recs in the email, in the comments.
Sure,
I guess,
yeah.
But not a lot that I found where it was sort of long-form discussion and analysis of like a specific book, you know what I mean, episode to episode. And then there are podcasts that are dedicated entirely to specific authors. There's like there's how many Infinite Jest DFW podcasts out there, and some
Right.
better and some worse, but that sort of a thing, you know what I mean?
The Great Concavity. That's one of them.
Shout outs.
Yeah.
I think they're good. I like.
Yeah, I do
their work,
too.
for sure. I just that's another thing, which is just like I can only listen to so much discussion of that book and him.
And it creates a different experience over time too. Like, you know, I feel like if you are reading books semi-regularly, you tend probably to be reading different stuff. I mean, and therefore, like, we were talking about how every book is a sequel to the next, as a kind
one
of
of the
like
guiding principles of the show.
Yeah, a kind of funny, but like I think actually somewhat profound truth, which is that like you create these rabbit warrens in your head after you start reading stuff of like interconnectedness, and that's a very different experience when you're reading like disparate stuff, which is what I think most people's experience is with like being like, I love one thing and I am obsessed and I'm only doing that. I'm only reading one guy,
right?
You know,
or
one writer,
genre.
one genre, whatever.
And I feel like just to get back to some of the personal motivations, like just selfishly, because again, I was out of the fiction game for a long time, and just kind of like finding a way to get forced back into it and read shit that I hadn't read before, that you guys had read or recommended and all that stuff. And it was just a way to kind of, beyond like us just reconnecting, which was again like an interesting kind of silver lining to the whole COVID thing. It was just a way selfishly for me to kind of jumpstart getting back into literature.
Were you guys ever in other book clubs? Because I was. Like, did you ever take stabs at being in just like regular ass, let's meet and sit together in a room in a circle, like book clubs?
No, never.
I
don't think so. Anyway.
I think I have been. I know you have some stuff to say about this, Matt. So maybe you can take over. But yeah, I have been, but it's more like they were more like like summer reading groups where you like do a deep dive into one book. You know what I mean? Like you read whatever, some long book for a whole 3 months, and you meet and talk about 30 pages every week or whatever it is. You know?
Yeah.
And they sucked. They all sucked pretty much universally.
Right. Was it just like what they chose, or just because it was like a slow ass pace to read like 30 pages every week?
It was partially that, and it was, you know, I think, well, I mean, one thing that I can say about this, the way this show has developed, is that when we were doing our book club just among ourselves, we sometimes did that, right? We would take 2, sometimes 3 weeks to read a book, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that model is fine, but like, and that's obviously sort of how you do it if you're in academic settings. A lot of the time you can read whatever for a whole semester and blah, blah, blah.
Well, they love unpacking.
They love unpacking, right? But I do think that in terms of talking about it, like in a podcasty type way, it just is not as, especially if you've already read the book and you're not just like kind of reading along, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's sort of like, okay, well, all right, I know, you just know, it's like, you know all the spoilers and you know how shit comes together, and like, I don't know, I didn't find it to be as effective as a way of talking and thinking about a work in the totality of the work.
Well, it'd be like it's the same thing with movies. If someone did a podcast about like half of Seven.
Yeah, right.
That's a good way
like,
to put it.
Yeah, it's like, where do you think this is gonna go? What is Brad Pitt gonna do?
And you're like, I hate this pod. Why am I listening to this podcast?
Yeah.
I do think that's actually like a kind of a pretty appropriate, like, I know people are gonna be like, oh, movie and books aren't the same. Like, yeah, okay, that's true, but it's a similar principle. Like you take a work in its totality, and you know, to me, I think those kind of like grindy, you know, let's really dig into every line and every like this and that. To me, that's something you do on a second reading, a third reading. I don't think that that's a helpful way to talk about a book the first time through it, personally, or a movie for that matter.
Yeah.
But that being said, we do dive so deep in, we end up doing a little bit of that, I would say, right?
We could be accused of bloviating.
That's a good word, bloviating.
Including right now by using that word.
Whoa, okay.
Whoa.
Listen, I'm trying to make this highbrow. I have Khan's graph behind me that I don't understand. But jouissance, castration, voice
Castration.
signifier. But yeah, I agree. Otherwise, it's just like I imagine it's annoying. It's just like people groping their way through partial narrative,
Right.
and you're just like, all right. Well, I saw 7, and I know Gwyneth Paltrow's in the box, so like, why do I need to hear somebody just guess?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there can be some enjoyment in like seeing someone go through that journey. Like for example, we read the Mountain Lion, which is one of my favorite books, and I had read it already like 3 or 4 times, and you guys had never read it, and you know, it's not like I wouldn't say it's like a twist ending, but like I liked a little bit watching you guys kind of go through reading it and thinking about where it was headed. So there is some interest in that, I think, but it's not. I don't think when you start getting down to the level of like parsing language and shit, it's to me that's a second and third reading kind of activity.
Yeah, I mean that felt like the other way feels very much like school. Like we're gonna be reading
some school books.
Okay, so yeah, in particular, The Great Gatsby.
We're doing it, baby.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing The Great Gatsby. That's one of those books that I read in high school, and that is exactly the way it was approached.
Yeah.
That is a slim little volume. It's a beautiful book. That took in the entire year. My teacher was obsessed with it. AP English guy.
Shout outs.
And yeah, it was like literally like he sucked the life force out of this novel that he loved too. He was like trying so hard. He's like, this is the great American novel, whatever. He was obsessed. But he ended up just like making it the most miserable grind I've ever experienced in reading by just being like, we'd read one sentence and be like, hey, why don't we stop it there? Think about what he's saying. Let me actually write this on the board. And you'd like write the sentence on the board and shit. And I'm just like, everyone was just like, everyone was like, shut up, please. We just,
Well, and I think that like that's, like when you talk to people, who don't read a lot of fiction or don't enjoy reading fiction, and you ask them why, and you get down into it, like a lot of the time comes back to some sort of formative experience like that they had with a book in high school, where it was like, they may have even enjoyed the book, but it was fucking like, just parsed and parochialized and picked apart in the process of reading it, that it like you say, it sucked all the life out of it, and it just makes it suck.
And like you said, not that that's a bad thing to unpack or whatever. It's just like, yeah, the first pass.
No, if you're doing a PhD in literature and you're fucking spending 6 years reading Ivan Turgenev or whatever, like, yeah, go for it, knock yourself out.
Mm-hmm.
But and that's useful and needs to be done, and so on and so on. But again, I just don't think that it's something that needs to be done by us on a podcast or potentially by anybody, and it's certainly not something that should be like your first encounter with a work, I don't think. Because
then to circle back, I didn't have anything truly negative to say about book clubs. I was just in some stinkers as well, where it was like the book wasn't that good first off, and then it was like clearly no one. This is on the opposite end of the spectrum. No one really wanted to talk about it.
Right.
It was like mostly an excuse to like get drunk on wine.
Oh, totally. That's like the general trope, right? It's just like I've observed book clubs like firsthand, and
yeah,
people,
wait, what does
half
that
people
even
don't
mean?
show up.
Hide her in the house.
I mean, like
Tom on book
I'm joking.
clubs?
I'm joking.
my ex-girlfriend had a book club, so I would see the people come.
Right.
And half people wouldn't show up, and then the people that did show up like barely read the book, and then they would just eat crackers and drink wine and then go home.
Yeah, that's exactly my experience.
Yeah.
And it would just immediately deviate to like just talking about whatever, just gossip and shits, which is fun. Is just like at the end of it, I was like, we should have just hung out.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Should have removed the middleman of this book.
We don't need a pretense to just hang out and get drunk.
Yeah, exactly. So that was all too, is like wanted to do it right a little bit, because that's the other end of the spectrum. It's not overburdening people with like meticulous unpacking of everything, but also it's not just like this completely like flippant. Like we just wanted the I don't know, the performative act of a book club as opposed to, you know, actually doing anything about reading.
Right.
Well, and that's kind of what the BookTube YouTube world kind of feels like to me too. It's very just like
Let's do
surface, face level, persona level. I'm going to talk about this book for 5 minutes, and that'll be it.
Yeah. Yes. I think that's kind of one of my overriding issues, and we can, if we want, we can name names if we want later and talk about
let's do it.
We like and don't like, but I just think in general the BookTube kind of approach, and you know, whatever, we can talk about if there are like pragmatic reasons for this, and uploading long ass YouTube videos is annoying, whatever. But you know, I'll see some of these people and they'll be talking about it's kind of the opposite end of those like nitpicky English teachers or whatever, where it's like, it's like, oh yeah, I'll get a notification like new video on fucking, I don't know, some like book that deserves to be like whatever, like like, I don't know, fucking Anna Karenina or some shit,
right?
And I'm like, oh cool, like yeah, this will be interesting. What do they have to say about it? And it's like 7 minutes.
Right.
Like, it's just okay, I don't care anymore. You know, and maybe this is too harsh, but in my view, it's just not possible to say anything worth saying about virtually any book in 7 minutes.
True.
And I just don't. To me, that's where it starts to veer into the more, you know, performative, where you're just. It's basically an extended name drop, you know. Yeah,
and I think most people are looking for essentially just a bunch of recommendations from like a personality that they vibe with more than anything else.
Right.
You know, which again has its place, but it's like some of these people build themselves as critics of some kind, or
right.
You know what I mean? Like they're super popular and they're informing the tastes of a lot of other people.
We're talking about Cliff. We're talking about Cliff.
Well, Cliff has a special place of derision because it's annoying how many...
For those of you who mercifully don't know just who we're talking about when we say the name Cliff, we're talking about books are better than food on YouTube and elsewhere. That's his handle.
Clifford Lee Sargent.
Yeah, Clifford P.P. Sargent.
Ooh, got him. Sergeant of the PP Army.
Oh my god, dude! I'm just thinking if he's like as a Twitch person, and he just calls all his subs the PP Army.
That would make me like him more.
Thanks for the bits, PP Army. Yeah.
Thanks for subbing. Welcome to the PP Army.
Get on my Discord. We have such a good community.
Oh god, always.
My 1000th subscriber will get a leather jacket that I personally pee on.
That would be an incredible reward, actually.
I mean, it's
piss-soaked
not out
jacket.
Of the realm of possibility. Yeah. Dude. I mean, dude, and the personality thing. He's like selling bookmarks with just his face on them and shit. Now it's just like, oh god,
that makes you want to throw up.
And okay, so he is a. There's a taxonomy of these people, I would say, and he is in the less populated category, maybe, because one of the reasons why he gets the focus of our ire, especially, is that he does cross into like very good literature, and do a pee bad job of talking about it.
Yeah.
So like, it's not even like just some like, I don't know. YA, like the million YA booktubers out there that are just like, my bookshelf has fairy lights on it, and there's an 800,000 multi-part series about teens with wings and like magic powers, which is just like, I just don't care. But then Cliff is talking about some of the things that I actually am like, these are incredible works, and this is what lends you the credibility to then like have a leather jacket and sell coffee and wallets.
Right. I mean, yeah.
And do a bad job of the, you know, what people are regarding as like the best criticism online.
Yes. Right. I mean, if you run through his comment section, it's just, oh yeah, no one does what you do. This is the best literary discussion I've ever heard about. And it's just like,
yeah.
I mean, maybe we should circle back at some point to the YA thing, because I think that's another interesting part of BookTube. But I think that Cliff, I mean, he did a video recently on The Great Gatsby, in which we're talking about in a couple weeks. And I don't know if you guys watched it, but it's terrible. It's just the most basic.
Did he like it or not?
No, he didn't like it. And the which is fine. You're allowed to not like works
just curious.
that other people like, but it's the justification, right? It's the way he talks about, whenever he doesn't like a book, his go-to is just like, no, I just didn't like it, and it was his favorite word to use when he doesn't like a book is it just felt bloodless. It was like there was no intensity of human emotion, man. It was just like bloodless, dude. Yeah, it's just bloodless. I didn't like it.
Yeah, I feel like it was bad.
Yeah, right. I feel like it was bad. Right.
He's kind of like, it's a little Anthony Fantano-y.
And I think, yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people, some people maybe gravitate towards that because I think there's this sense that, they're at bottom for people with literature and like a lot of artistic interpretation in general. There's this sense that like at the base of it, there's not a lot more to say other than it felt bad to read. I didn't enjoy it or whatever. And I think all of us here can agree that that's false. Or maybe not you. I don't know how you feel about that, Paul.
Yeah, maybe I mean, I agree with that, but it's not how I particularly read books or enjoy books. Like I do like that base level of just like, do I like this or I don't? But I also understand that that's like not the best way to actually talk about a book if you're like in the critical world. It comes across as way too subjective, and I just feel like that's incorrect.
Well, yeah, because I think the other thing is, like you said, subjective. Like if you have one person who's more of like an image, than an actual like human being who's having a pleasurable time reading other people's works, then you just get like the kind of I feel like I feel like that. And I think like when we've talked about stuff, I think we've all at some point disliked something that someone else chose, and like we're just not in it, and we're just like, I want to fucking just get through it. But then the discussion, right, that is kind of forced and sometimes probably not pleasurable for one of us to have to go through because we didn't like the work, ends up being, at the very least, like you can drag out some more usually good sentiments about, or not sentiments, but just like I don't know, informative.
Well, it's about justification, right? Like it's like, okay, like we can, you can. I'm not, you don't have to invalidate anyone's experience of just like not enjoying engaging with something, but like you can go back and listen to our shows where various people didn't like shit, and there's always more or less articulate explanations of why, right? Like here's why this didn't work for me. Here's like some shit that didn't click or didn't feel good or whatever. And it's not just like that. If your starting point is I didn't like it, it was bloodless, which is just, to me, I'm sorry I'm fixating on that word, but to me it's just like such a it's such a fucking shell game where it's like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like there's no way of explaining what that term means other than I didn't like it. And I don't think that we do that very often.
Bloodless is bloodless.
Right. Bloodless is as bloodless does.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said too about like, if like, since we started this as a book club and I think we do it the right way, we're actually talking about the book. I think that if you're just a single entity on YouTube talking about books that you like or dislike, you end up creating like your own feedback loop within yourself, and you just like, you're doubling down on your own personality and your own personal choices with no one else to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah.
Which I think is like almost all of the booktubers out there. It's like they're reading a book by themselves, and they're not getting any other points of view from any other people. So that's one thing I like about our club is that, like, if I was just on YouTube making book reviews I would probably just be reading Murakami novels. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
and it's
It'd be
it's
your
just
taste
so
only.
helpful. Yeah, it's just so helpful to have other people to talk to about why you like something and why you dislike something. And someone like Cliff is just like doubling down on who he is, and just buying more leather jackets and growing out his mustache longer and shit. So yeah, there's an aspect to it that's like people are just going about it the wrong way. I think you need the discussion, even though book clubs can be lame and boring and turn into wine clubs.
Yeah.
If they're done right, they can be really helpful, and you can enjoy books that you maybe wouldn't have enjoyed or wouldn't even pick. Like, so many of the books I wouldn't have even come across if you guys didn't suggest them.
Yeah.
I think that's another big thing for me, is that like, if the very like I don't know, overly hopeful kind of notion about something like this is that you see people, maybe demystification is the word that comes to mind, because like, yeah, you need I want more people to read. That would be good, I think, as a start. I think more people should be reading. And then making it not be this, like, boring or painful work or grind. It's, like, just showing that, like, you can talk about it with other people. And it's also important to do that because, like you said, then they'll bring inputs that you never would have had on your own. Because I know another thing about readers is that a lot of them tend to be very isolated in that pursuit. And I think it needs to be more communalized or something, or like you more open to having other people. At the same time, like I was just contradicting a bit because like the book club I was in before was bad. The books were bad and I didn't like it, and no one wanted to talk about it. But you still have to choose who your like people are, which is why I think
that's what I mean. Like the club idea is a good idea, but it's so often done poorly, and people just don't have the right attitude coming into it that it just turns into something maybe worse than if you're reading on your own, maybe.
And then just like Cliff, and then like YA people and like Murphy Napier people, and even R.C. Walden. Wholesome, but I just hate him.
Yeah.
They're all mystifying it in some way that I find annoying, because they're like pushing a sort of brand of what it means to read. All three, and it's like none of it's should be how you end up, in my opinion. Like, you know what I mean? It's like you're not a little baby who's gonna just read about dragons and castles all the time. You're not gonna be Mr. Cool Guy reading about sex and death all the time, like Cliff.
Right.
These are not the end points, or you're not some like little like pointy-headed nerd academic guy who's like, reading is good for empathy and creating an intellectual environment. It's kind of all of the above, and therefore none of those specifically. Like, I don't know. Those all feel like dead ends ultimately.
Yes, I mean, I agree, and I also think like when you're talking about some of the like YA booktubers or the fantasy booktubers or whoever, you mentioned Murphy Napier. Like the other thing with those folks is just like they're like you said, their end point, they're sort of the bedrock of everything is, well, if you disagree, that's fine. You can just do whatever. It doesn't matter. And
let people like stuff.
Yeah, and then I'm just like, okay, I don't really know what we're doing. Like if we're not involved if we're not involved in at least, and maybe this is my like full disclosure, my background is in philosophy, and I'm interested in like making arguments and not having arguments, but like justifying beliefs and justifying like why I think this or that certain thing. And if you go through a 10-minute video explaining like, oh, I loved this character and I liked this book, and then at the end you say, but if you didn't, it doesn't matter, it's fine, and like then just that's the end of the story. I don't know. I feel like you're not inviting conversation. You're not inviting any, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like, you can't. There is no conversation to be had at the end of the day, except I liked it, you didn't. Okay.
Right.
Well, at least if you're taking that approach, at least explain like your personal choice, why you end up liking it at the very least. Like why I like this character, why this character appeals to me. I think you can open or end it by saying like, you know, you can make your own argument, but not that it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Well, I think most people don't just make it the one step further that would make it actually worthwhile. Like we said, you know, the commonality between someone like Cliff and Murphy Napier, and although they seem to be diametrically opposed to each other, you know, in their tastes, is that there's like we said before, like the sentiment, and then there's no inquiry into why the sentiment is happening. Really,
Right.
you know, there's like there's gestures towards like being like, I felt this way, and I think I felt this way because this, and it's pretty weak. It's pretty superficial.
Yeah, it's just this sort of like base. It's you're just sort of like reporting phenomenology. Like you're just reporting your experiences at that point, and it's just like, okay, that's fine, but it's not a conversation. You know what I mean? It's not it's not a discourse. It's just a report. You know?
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, that's one of my personal reasons why I like doing the podcast, because like if I was left to my own devices, I would probably just like read for taste, read for enjoyment, read to like basically look at a pretty sunset, you know, and doing a podcast engages my mind, obviously, and it forces us to talk about uncomfortable things and, you know, back up our opinions, and it's all useful, especially, I mean, for me, especially as I've gotten older, and anyone, I really, is that you can kind of fall back to your own devices, I guess, and just like kind of coast. And I always go back to like, you know, a 50-year-old woman who just reads romance novels, and it's like no one really wants to turn into that, and I don't want to turn into that. I want to keep engaging my mind and you know, try to keep being excited about things, excited about new ideas, new authors, new ways of storytelling, new approaches to how someone can write a book. So
The other thing that I'll say about Cliff specifically, and this is, I mean, this probably applies to some degree to some of the other kind of like more like high-minded, literary-minded kind of booktube folks. And I would actually say that this is, in my experience, not always, but in my experience, something that a lot of the like YA, sometimes some of the fantasy people do, frankly, a better job about, is that for Cliff, he takes every book in total isolation, right? There's no sense of the context in which it was written, political or cultural. There's no sense of the context in which he's interpreting it and engaging with it, political or cultural. It's
Right.
all just face value, kind of what it's a very kind of you know, reductive literalist way of reading, which is just, you know, I'm just going to look at what's on the fucking page in front of me, and that's it. You know, like he'll sprinkle in a little bit at the beginning sometimes about an author's biography or something like that. But
Right,
there's no sense of you know, political context, social context, historical context. It's all completely, you know, for Cliff. And again, this is sort of in diametric opposition to what we've said about the way we read and sort of books being sequels to one another and like putting them in context and all that.
Right.
For Cliff, every book is an island. And I think that that's among the most harmful and least useful ways of engaging with literature.
and kind of any form of art too, I would say, right?
Yeah.
Like not every movie is an island, not every
No.
you know, musical artist is an island. There's always connections and ways of thinking about things in more expansive ways. So yeah, but especially in literature, I would say it's the most jarring.
And it's also just a pleasurable to suss out the connections between things, even if they're like hundreds of years apart. You know, like that creates you know, a historical account of like ideas moving through time and like talking about history and all of these things. It can be fun, is my point. I'm trying, you know what I mean? Like, it's fun. That's the only way you're going to get people to like sort of redefine what it means to be having a good time and like enjoying something and having fun.
And of course that sort of
right?
that way of reading, that sort of like, you know, parochial, isolated way of reading invites the sort of well, I liked it or I didn't like it, and there's nothing else to say about it, kind of thing. Because if it's just about you in the book, and there's no context, there's no history, there's no culture, there's no like politics involved, there's nothing bigger than you, it's just that dyadic relationship between the book and you, then I can see why some people would get to the point where they're like, well, what else am I supposed to say about it? I didn't like it.
Which is
What
why
else am I supposed to say about it? I did like it.
I feel like that leads to another thing we wanted to bring up, which is the phenomenon of people being like, yeah, I don't really read fiction, like, it's just fake.
Well,
know what I mean?
yeah, we have to talk about this. This is that reminded me of a memory I have of like, I think we were in high school, Gabe, and I was talking about some fantasy book or like Lord of the Rings or
I'm pretty sure it was
something.
Lord of the Rings.
And you were like, what was the exact quote you said?
So
you basically
this is one of my worst. I just want to put that this is arguably my worst take of all time.
It was something like, I don't read anything that actually can't happen or something like that. You're like, I don't read things that can't actually happen in the real world.
I only read books that could happen.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was so weird.
So cocky.
I was like 16, I think.
Yeah, no, that's honest. That's being honest,
but
you know.
That's a bad take.
But also, you know, when you were 16, it's funny because like you were actually reading. You and I had a sort of unofficial like book club in our college years, very briefly, and like we were reading a lot.
Would sit in the bathtub naked together, reading the same book.
Yeah, just rose petals and milk.
Saw it.
Just our arms intertwined, just reading each other's copy.
No, I'm leaning back in your lap, and you're holding your book out in front of me. We're both reading it. We're like, wow, this is great. I love post-war European literature.
That's right.
As
I caress your legs.
But so there was like a period, and then like you mentioned at the top, you stopped for a really long time.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get an official explanation.
Yeah. So
on the record.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so like I said, I really stopped reading fiction between the ages probably of like 23 and 32, or 23 and whatever. How long have we been doing this? A year at this point? Not the podcast, something like, but I don't know when we started the actual, like, we're getting together reading books, but
approaching a year, yeah.
So yeah, I was kind of not reading any fiction. I was still reading some stuff. I was reading
Star Wars.
I do have a soft spot for Star Wars novels for sure.
Shit is good.
And I will go to the mat on that. And this is why I don't. We can talk about genre, I guess, in a bit, but like
sure.
I have love for all my fantasy and YA people out there. For
sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
I know. But and yeah, we can come back to that. But what was I saying? So yeah, I quit reading. Part of it, was it wasn't necessarily some like big, decision where I said I'm putting the hammer down. I'm
no more
reading.
fiction for me.
It wasn't. It
stops.
That.
It stops here. It stops now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my axe.
Stop.
There was no moment like that. You know what I mean?
That's good.
And a big part of it was practical. I was going into an intensive kind of master's degree in philosophy, and eventually wound up doing a PhD, and not in philosophy, in a different discipline, because academic philosophy is toxic. I'm just going to put that out there. And, there was just practical limits to what I could be doing with my free time. Like I just had to be reading stuff that was relevant to my academic work for most of my free time. You know what I mean? It was, if you're, at least for me, if I'm doing, and maybe this gets into like how we read a little bit too, and we can talk about that later, but like if I'm spending all day reading, whatever, Rawls or fucking Foucault or whatever the fuck it is, I'm sitting there for 5-6 hours reading this shit. One of the last things I want to do is jump into like a difficult or like, you know, hard fictional text. Like that,
Right.
it doesn't have that. You know. I think this gets to the question of like how we read, why we read. It's not when I'm reading. Obviously, I find it pleasurable, but it's not like sitting down and fucking just watching like reruns of Parks and Rec or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? You can't. It's not relaxing to me in that way.
Yeah,
per
it's
se.
like
you know what
your
I mean?
mind was at that frequency for hours and hours reading a certain way, and you don't want to relax by still reading, basically,
Exactly.
right? Yeah, it's like
Which
if you worked all day at a pudding factory, you're not going to go home and like eat pudding from a different.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Oh, I'm going to try out this
exactly.
pudding.
From a different company.
Exactly. I mean, it's like, or another sort of analogy. Like, I worked in food service for a long time in the restaurant industry, and even the best chefs, the best professional chefs that I ever worked with, they were like, "Oh, I never cook for myself at home, like ever. Like, I fucking order. I go when I'm done. I order Taco Bell and I get fucking Dunkin' Donuts for breakfast. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's the same sort of principle. You know, obviously reading
Totally.
philosophical texts or political text is a different type of reading than reading fiction, I would say, although there's similar. But in terms of like activating your brain and like, okay, what am I making of this? What is the what's the meaning here? Like, how am I interpreting this? There's similar sorts of things going on, I would argue. And so there was a big part of me that was just like, I just don't. No, you know what I mean? I can't. I want to play video games, or I want to fucking watch TV or whatever.
Right.
So there was that kind of that was a big aspect of it. Frankly, like it wasn't so much anything like ideological, I guess. Why I stopped reading fiction. I mean, there were moments when I was like, and I think we probably had some of these conversations early on when I was like starting the master's degree, when I was still like a shitlord about certain things and the superiority of philosophy and whatnot, where I probably did have moments where I was like, oh, it's not worth engaging with.
Right.
Why would I read fiction when I haven't finished, you know, reading Heidegger's works or whatever. Like, oh, it's just a better use of my time. Like, so there definitely were times where I was making kind of like some value judgments like that. But I wouldn't say that was like the overriding thing.
That's good. I wasn't sure what the ratio was there, but I do know a lot of people who, like my dad, who are just like, the utility of fiction reading is zero. Right. So I'm not going to, I'm going to read the closest I'll get is like a biography of a Supreme Court judge or something. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, good Lord.
You know what I mean? Like the dad fiction or the dad book of like some sort of historical account of something, or like a biography of a president.
A history of the development of tanks.
Yeah, exactly. Just like literally that shit. It's like data, information about the history of,
right.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. My dad recently read a book, like a 1,500-page book about the Civil War.
Yeah.
I was like, ugh. That's
like again,
hell for
which
me.
Shout-outs. That's
no,
great.
I mean, that's
Love it.
probably pretty cool.
Again,
I did watch the Ken Burns documentary. I would much rather
nice.
watch that. Yeah.
It's just the justification for the exclusion of the other thing that's the problem.
Right.
You know, it's like go read a biography. It's just that it's like that's all I want to do, and I literally am just like fiction is just like made up slop,
Right.
blah blah blah.
Right. Yeah, which is like it's something I totally disagree with. I mean, even back to when we were in high school, and Gabe, you would just like bring out these crazy movies for us that I just, I still get, or I got a lot out of them when I was a youngster. They make you think about things in life in a very different way, and it's a new experience, and books are exactly the same way. Like, I'm thinking in particular of, like, Sweet movie.
Still one of my favorite movies.
Sweet movie is
That
still
movie is-
good.
Still one of
I'll
my
have, like,
favorite
nightmares about it still, like the poop coming up on the freaking elevator. Or was it going down?
movies. I forget. It was going up.
I wanted
Yeah.
to take that sugar bath or whatever so bad.
Oh my god.
Just
So
roll
good.
around nude in sugar,
And then
and then
die and get
chocolate,
stabbed.
and then die and get stabbed, and then blood sugar. My blood sugar's spiked. But yeah, I mean, that's a good example
Go ahead.
of just like an early example, right, of stuff that felt almost like, honestly, like all those like movie nights, watching weird shit,
Yeah.
felt better educationally in a lot of ways than the high school we were going to.
Definitely.
You know?
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good example of like, I don't know, like engaging with some art form in weird, you know, off the rails kind of ways that felt very like impactful and immediate.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, yeah. Well, and I'll say it. I don't know what you guys think about this. One thing that has definitely notably changed for me in terms of reading fiction since my 20s, my early 20s, is that I used to sort of read a book and kind of sort of do the Cliff thing, just kind of take it at face value and like and I would get mad sometimes, like, oh, this book's not political enough. This book doesn't have any interesting philosophical ideas in it, or it doesn't have any, it's not whatever, engaging with interesting topics,
The things I like.
whatever.
Yeah.
And something that I have come to believe very strongly is that all texts, and that I'm construing texts broadly in this sort of like Derridian sense, like art, movies, TV, literature, everything, right? All texts are inherently political, and they're inherently dealing with like philosophical ideas and difficult concepts, even if they're not directly addressing them, right?
Right.
And I think that is one of my main kind of disagreements with, certain people who read in a different way. It's every work of literature or cultural production is in a context and is participating in a context and has views on that context, whether or not it's explicitly saying so. And so that has, for me, increased my ability to enjoy, I guess, or think about certain types of literature or art that I was not equipped with back then.
That's a good approach. Like, I feel like people maybe a lot of the time if they don't have their particular little bells dinged right in stuff, then they go it's just kind of boring. Broadening.
If I'm Cliff, there's no sex and death in this book, therefore it sucks.
Right, or sometimes there is, but it's like written by a woman.
Yeah, exactly. in which case it's bloodless.
Yeah, it's sort of bloodless and hysterical. But once again, like the idea is like sort of broadening a sense of what's there almost, right? Which
Right.
When people get in their little grooves, and they don't have like very specifically some Pavlovian bells dinged through like keywords and concepts being like literally dropped and named. It makes it harder to like derive enjoyment as well.
Which is okay, to get back to BookTube a little bit and the sort of Murphy Napiers and stuff of the world and the YA people and the fantasy people. I see that a lot in that group of people. Like they literally will make videos about what are your favorite tropes.
Yeah,
and like,
they love tropes.
If this trope isn't in the book, I don't want to read it.
Yeah.
Or if this trope is in the book, I'm automatically going to like it. And it's like they literally get down to the level of like, if this book has an old wizard that guides the hero, I'm gonna love it no matter what. I'm like, this is so stupid.
Yeah, that's like it reminds me of someone like watching like a sitcom just because they want to hear the catchphrase every episode. That's the same thing.
Do the thing,
which is
Do
true.
The thing.
Which
you
is
want
like
to hear Chandler say, "Can I be wearing money or clothes?" or whatever.
Yeah. How you doing?
Bazinga.
How you
yeah.
doing?
Bazinga. People want to hear Bazinga.
Challenge accepted.
Good Lord.
I think of that Simpsons episode where they're at a concert and Homer's watching ZZ Top perform, and he gets annoyed because they're playing whatever that song with working overtime is, and he just wants to hear them say working overtime, and he's just like, get to the working overtime part. Like, so he even likes the song, but only one part.
Yes.
So I kind of like, I don't know, maybe that's analogous in some way.
Well, and I think it speaks to this attitude that some people have when they read, and I would put Cliff in this group and some of these other BookTube people, and it's sort of like okay, it's that dyadic relationship where it's just the book and just the reader, and I feel like the attitude going in for a lot of people is sort of like sitting back with their arms crossed, like, all right, well, impress me, right? Show me what you got. Like, give me, be good. You know what I mean?
Right.
Whereas my attitude at this point, going into reading literature, is like, I assume from the beginning that there's something of value in the book, and it's my job to try to fucking figure out what it is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing that I think is like not pleasant to think about
because it's more work.
Because it's like your onus is on you partially. You know, you're not. It's not as much like a movie in that way where there. Or no, that's not fair. But like if you're engaging with art and it's worth anything, you are also, the onus is on you to do some work. You can't just be like, nah, and just like flows into your mouth.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I think people want sometimes. They're just like, oh
Well, yeah, they do. They
give me the good stuff.
People, they enjoy their own habitual, close-minded, creature of habit tropes. Like, they want to, like, sink into that shell of comfort. Like, oh, this has a wizard. I love wizards. I'm going to read this book. And there's, like, there's a wall up in their line of thinking, and they don't even want to begin to knock it down or cross it. And maybe they don't even know how to... People don't even know how to read a book differently.
Right.
Not even if they just don't want to. They don't even know how.
And maybe.
I mean,
well, no. I mean, I think that's the other thing is that there's a level of like people assume a level of like transparency, right? Like a book is a thing. I just sit down and I read the words and that's it, right? Like I read the words in the sequence, and then did I like it or not? Where in reality, reading is a skill. There's a lot of work that goes into it. It's not just this, you sit down and just fucking do it, and then that's the end. At least that's how I feel about it.
Yeah. I think, right. You build up, again, like the ability to parse, like different styles and their effects on you, and like, create a catalog essentially through reading of different things to reference that like are very personal to you after a while, you know what I mean? Like
sure.
I feel like you can develop something more of like a robust identity or like personality almost, or like maybe I'm just ham-fistedly trying to say it's enriching or something like.
No, I mean I think the same way people have writing styles, like people have reading styles, right? You have a way of engaging with the text, and it's not purely subjective in terms of the interpretation, but it's the way you, and we've talked about this before. Maybe we can talk about it again in a bit, but it's the way you approach text, right? Your orientation.
Yeah, and like for the trope thing, I see this, with people who like movies a lot. And I heavily inferencing a particular person. The construction.
Greg Turkington.
It's Greg Turkington.
Black bags.
The almost the like and I'm a. It's hard to like criticize this stuff, but also like I'm kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth. Like I am still like there's a place for this stuff, and it's good. You know what I mean? But whatever my personal opinions are about like doing it too much. So like for him, the emphasis is like so heavily on structure.
I'm sorry. Who's the him we're talking about at this point?
Patrick.
Oh, okay.
I think personally, there's a little overemphasis on like the beautiful Swiss watch structure at the cost of I don't know, some sort of at the cost of like an actual idea being brought to bear. It's like a beautifully crafted narrative, and I think this is what genre fiction also provides for a lot of people, is like this smooth ride through this like perfect seamless machine almost, and like the emphasis is too much on enjoying that experience and being sort of dazzled by how finely the little cogs and everything like spin and whatever, and not what it was for or to what it was serving or anything like that. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah,
that's my take on genre stuff, I guess.
I agree with you for the most part. I think. I mean, an overemphasis on structure in literature is, yeah, it's limiting. But I would also say that, like, maybe you guys disagree, but I think The Mountain Lion is a good example of, like, pretty solid structure. Like, I think it is just, like, a really great narrative beginning to end story. Maybe it's not, like, you know, exactly what a perfect, I don't know, quote unquote perfect structure of a novel should be, but everything did feel like the gears lined up and everything hit hard at certain points. So I think that it can make something more enjoyable, like even what's the time travel movie with Marty McFly?
Fucking
Back to the Future?
Back to the Future. I mean, that's
Uh-huh.
one of those, you know, those movies that's like, oh, the structure of it's so good, it hits all these right beats, and you know, you can enjoy. I think there's no real issue of enjoying something for that, you know, for that reason, but it is limiting, and you have to go beyond that. And I think it's helpful to read authors or watch movies that push the boundaries of structure.
Right.
I don't really find it necessary, but maybe it is necessary if you're hyper focused on one way of storytelling, because I just feel like you're limiting yourself to a different experience and to think about things differently and opening up new ways of thought.
Yeah, I get that's the emphasis. It's just every time there's some of this like stumbling block mode of thinking, it's just more like just open it up, you know, like you'll have a better time. You will, like, your life will be improved if you
Right.
if you can you know, accommodate some of these other things that aren't this one thing, basically. I feel like I'm talking about very basic shit at this point.
Well,
you
yeah,
know?
but I mean, it feels basic, but it's like if you look at the landscape of, you know, sorry, excuse me, people who talk about this shit online, you don't see that. It's just do the things you like, don't do the things you don't like, and okay.
And then just like sexualized bookshelf tours where it's like, oh my god, look how. And that's the other thing. There's a perverted energy, or there's a fetish energy going on in some of the book stuff too. With like, here's my big thick ass book, or here's my like burdened bookshelf of just so many tomes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Where it's just like, then there's just like the straight up just consumer aspect of like having a bunch of books and that being its own identity. That's cool. When it's equally meaningless.
Which I like. Weird. I agree with that though. Having books is cool. Maybe
No,
I
it
shouldn't.
is.
I just think books, they look nice. A nice full
That's true.
bookshelf.
But there is just that like I was saying, like the bookshelf tours that are just like sweeping, and it's just like, oh,
I
these
love
are all
a
my
good
books.
bookshelf tour, though.
Yeah.
I do too. I know. I don't know how to describe it. I'm trying to like weave between the two. I'm like, it's fetishy and it can be bad, but also
Yeah.
I love it. And a bookshelf tour is like like super speed recommendations essentially.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should ask the question, like, how do we find books to read? That question, by the way, comes from Taylor Swift on Twitter.
Oh.
Oh
thank you,
yeah,
Taylor.
yeah, that's good.
Because I think that's one thing, like you say, Matt. I think that's one of the appeals of some of these booktube channels is that it's just people want to find books to read, or
Right. They don't
whatever.
necessarily want to hear the unpacking, and
Yeah.
which is, you know, I forgot to say that I do think the medium of YouTube in particular is pretty hostile to what you're describing, like some hour-long analysis of something.
For
And it's
sure.
definitely not meant for that, or, you know, isn't nice to that kind of creator.
Right. We're not mad.
Yeah, we're molding. I do get asked that question myself.
What? How do you find
Too.
books to read?
You're like, how the fuck did
All right,
you
well,
pick
what's your-
this?
Then what's your answer?
Do you guys have an easy answer to this question?
No. I mean, I
I
have
do.
some answers. Yeah, Paul, go ahead.
I mean, to be honest, we didn't talk about my book journey, but I didn't read a lot in the last like 5 years until the book club. So I mean, only recently in the last year have I've been forced to try to find new books. So
Well, talk about your journey then too.
well, I mean, I spent a lot of years working hard hours, and I just never felt like reading a book. I read like one book a year for like 5 years straight. I was just like, I don't want to fucking read. I want to watch TV. Like, it doesn't, like, I was thinking about your reasons for not reading, Gabe, is because you were reading, for your job or for your life during your days. But for me, it was just like, I'm too exhausted and I don't want to. I want to watch TV. I want to watch The Office. I've always obviously liked reading and picking up a book that would change the way I think or whatever, but only in the last year since we started the club I've been forced to have to find books on a weekly basis. Right. So my process is really just through the Kindle app, through kind of through Goodreads, really just through Amazon and Kindle, which is the same thing, but you can find a lot just searching through there, especially I downloaded a bunch of book club books on my Kindle, and they'll recommend authors, and you just find them.
Yeah, I think I would add in there just to get back to some of the critiques of booktube culture and contemporary online reading culture. It's that same. One of the problems here is that people, and there's an app now. I forget what it's called. There's a new app. I got an ad for it a few days ago, where basically you put in your favorite books, and it just spits out more books that are like those ones that it thinks you'll like.
Right.
And I think that is very bad. And I think that it's the same sort of attitude that I like what I like, and I like 2 or 3 types of things, and that's all I'm going to read forever. And
yeah,
I think
because it'll burrow down on you and make it even more limiting
100%.
As time goes on.
Algorithm life.
Yeah, basically.
And I think that one of the reasons that people feel like they have trouble finding books to read is because they have read all of the 20 or 30 books that meet their very, very specific criteria for things that they like, and they're just well, there's no more books to read. There's no more books that I would like, because I only like fucking 3 types of things, and they're very specific. And so what the hell? Where are the books? There's just no more books. And it's, I think it's a really bad attitude. Sometimes you just got to pick up a fucking random book and read it.
Yeah, which I've done before for the club. I picked up Shella and read it.
Remember
that was our first. That was the first one. I just picked that up.
Success.
Good book.
But I was just gonna say, but being in a book club though, and getting books from other people like you guys, it expands my pool on Amazon and Kindle, because it's not just Murakami. What else would I like? The pool is a lot bigger because I have so many different authors.
Confuse the algorithm.
Yeah, maybe
it's not just gonna recommend.
Think about fighting it. Think about you're in combat with the algorithm.
Exactly.
You start seeing some patterns. Try and fuck it up.
Yes.
Even now, I'll watch YouTube because I do work at home on my computer. So YouTube is sort of a nervous tick. I'm always sort of going there. I hate my fucking Rex at this point. I'm in hell, wreck hell right now, dude. I'm how did I get here? I'm just all this shit.
Get here?
Seriously, it's all this shit sucks. How did I? And it's my bad. I have to cop up to it. It's recommended to me through me apparently. So it's
no, dude, fuck that. Don't.
I gotta read. Well, I'm just
cuck you.
It's not. I just have to reshuffle and break out of the ease of using its recommendations.
Right.
But yeah, algorithm bad. I think a general stance. But I also understand not unqualifiedly just a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
My dad, he listens to new music he never would listen to because of Spotify Discover and all that shit.
Sure.
So I can't just be blanket this sucks and is bad for everybody. But for the most part, yes, right? It's for the most part, it's just the same feedback loop kind of thing all the time.
Yes, 100%. Which is, again, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because there's the type of algorithm that'll get you some new stuff, but then there's this. It also functions in the same way of just sending you further into the spiral of here's the 2 things you like, and that's it.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know, man. I have a hard time answering this question to people, and I feel bad because it's people that actually are oh, maybe I want to shake things up. I want to read, and
right.
I'm just my best answer is just start, and then over time, just keep tabs on all the various authors you like, and pay attention to what they might say they liked about it, and find people you trust, whose opinions you trust, and ask them, and just follow these rabbit holes, you know, and get as many different little like leads as you can, and follow their like splinterings off into, you know, everything else, and eventually it snowballs, and you tend to have a pretty consistent over years. Eventually, you tend to have a pretty consistent like, I want to read this like all the time.
Right.
But it's not easy. I would say it's not a quick thing that you can just do.
No, not at all. I mean, I think, you know, I think that's the other thing, is that it takes work. It's not just like, the books don't just appear to you, that generally speaking, that you
Right, and
like,
they're good and you love them.
And they're good
Yeah.
and you love them. You know what I mean? And that's the other thing, is you might have to read some books that you fucking don't like. God forbid anyone has to do anything they don't 100% enjoy all the time these days, you know? And,
You as well.
Yeah, exactly. But in terms of purely pragmatics, one thing that I'll say that I use a lot is the Goodreads like lists. Like if you have a book that you like or that you enjoyed, just go to the page of the book and it'll give you like 20 or 30 like lists that it's been included on. And they're pretty widely varied in terms of like, you know, what they are. Some of them are genre based. Some of them are like books that were written in this decade. Click that list, see what's in there. Fucking some of them are like books that they get really specific, like books that fucking reference animals in the title. Go check it out. You know what I mean? Like, go see what books are in that fucking list. Click a couple of them randomly. See what's, you know, who cares? You know?
Who do we like? Who do we like that talks about books?
Ooh.
Orpheus.
Yeah, shout outs.
I'm going to have to shout out Orpheus.
On YouTube. He was going to come on the show. Let's try to make that happen again at some point.
He digs up some weird ones. Again, the good people are pretty singular, right? Which is what you want. They're it's so clearly not a brand. First off, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
No one would accuse Orpheus of like being disingenuous about his love of like Appalachian slang dictionaries. Right, you know what I mean? Like, no one's gonna be like, "Wow, way to cop out, Orpheus." There's like, you know,
there's no bandwagons there.
Yeah, it's just like, it tends to be like people. I forget what his name is. He's this like old man who just he's like, let's go to my basement, and his whole basement is like just wall to wall hoarder levels of books.
That's great.
And he's just like, I can't either remember his name, but
was he on the show Hoarders? Is that what you're thinking of?
No, I wish.
I love Hoarders.
It's all books, so it can't necessarily be called that. But yeah, like, I like Paperbird a lot. He's more popular, but and he makes weird ass videos, but his recs are pretty all over the place. I like it.
Yeah.
So there's also that route, right? You know, dig around a little.
Yeah, there's plenty of people who make videos about books on YouTube that have like 10 subscribers. And
yes.
Some of them are good.
Yeah.
You know, and they do a good job talking
kind of like
about
us.
the fucking books. Kind of like us.
Kind of like us. We have 70, so.
Yeah, dude, chill out.
Almost 80. I just checked. We have 78.
Hell yeah, dude. That's good.
Woo!
Almost 80.
Let's get that to 100 people. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, go over there. We sometimes post. We do stuff over there that we don't do here.
But yeah, cranks, untelegenic weirdos, all these kind of things, like us, tend to be a good start. People with very few subscribers tend to, you know, that's where you know you're going in for the love of the game. They haven't been co-opted to you know, suddenly just be friends with authors and be like, I happen to love, you know, this guy's book, and here he is on the show and shit like that. It is funny to think of like payola and shit going on in the book sphere, but it happens a little bit.
Oh, definitely. I love Carly, Uncarly on YouTube, dude. She's crack up.
Oh yeah, she's funny.
Yeah.
I think her videos are hilarious and good.
Yes.
Also, just such a like unique. I mean, I don't know. I had never seen. You know, she's a pretty new channel, but she's already pretty big.
Yeah, she grew fast.
She blew up, as they say.
Not jealous.
Not jealous at all. But I just think her videos are really funny. She does, like, you know, for people who don't know her, again, Uncarly on YouTube, but her she does like she like goes around the internet and finds like book recommendations. This is not the only thing she does, but it's one of the funnier things that I think she does. She goes around the internet and finds like places where celebrities have recommended books, like Taylor Swift or Haley Steinfeld or whoever the fuck, some of these random people, or the Jonas Brothers, and like reads like 3 of the books that they recommend for video and talks about it.
Oh, I just found one where
really
she read
funny.
Timothy Chalamet's favorite books.
She said he was like basically was the character from God, what is that movie where he's like in high school and he's reading like Howard Zinn?
Yeah, I don't know the name of the movie, but I know what you're talking about.
Lady Bird.
Lady Bird, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think she's funny, and I like it. Just again, not a lot of pretense in terms of like attitude.
Yeah, exactly. And like I like that there's like a spin on it and whatever, like she has a good like the celebrity reading list thing is like very funny. I'd say that's a really good angle.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I wish we thought of that idea. We could just
I don't know if we could have pulled it off.
Yeah, we couldn't have.
No.
It's like, hey, I'm reading Harry Styles' favorite book. It's like, you need to never not do this.
That would be the strangest thing for 3 30-year-old guys to do.
It might be funny, though.
It could be funny. We could try it,
Yeah.
What do you got? Maybe the sort of elephant in the room of other big booktubers. What do you guys think about Leaf by Leaf? Chris, what's your take?
I don't have a strong opinion about him, honestly. I've watched a couple of his, maybe like 5 of his videos, and I just don't have a really strong opinion. I don't really want to even talk about it.
Yeah, fair enough.
I just
don't feel like I can inform enough about it. So
he's good. He's a wholesome guy.
Super wholesome.
I think he's got the love in his heart for the things he's talking about, which is, carries a lot of weight with me. I think he is angling potentially to do a career shift and be Michael Silverblatt's replacement.
Yes. He interviewed him, didn't he?
Yeah, they have like correspondence. He's like friends. He has, he's a very agreeable person. I'll say that's all I'll say.
Yeah. I mean, I will say I do like that his videos generally are a little bit longer than your average like booktube idiot, which he
has some insights. Yeah,
he has some insights, and he does, and I appreciate that he will do. One thing that I'll say that I really appreciate that he does is like he'll do follow-ups and do like a series. Like he's reading all of Murakami's books and he's hated them all basically. So and he's still doing that.
Possibly one reason why I don't really give his channel a lot of attention is because I appreciate him for reading all of them, but we just have such different tastes, and I'm like, I'm not going to watch any more of these because you hate all the books that I like. So.
Yeah, but just in terms of like attitudinally, right? I think there's something for people to learn there. Like, I don't like this, but I'm going to keep doing it.
True that.
Yeah. It's I give him a lot of credit for that. I'm just like, he's plowing through. He's reading books he doesn't like.
And to be fair, he has liked a couple of them, but
they're the ones that are the least Murakami-ish.
Like. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
do you know if he liked? Sorry, no, I'll ask this later.
No, what?
Do you know if he's done one on South of the Border, West of the Sun?
He did, and I think he liked it more than some of the others. I know you like that one a lot.
That's maybe my new favorite. Yeah. So maybe
I'm pretty sure he did a video on it.
Is that an older one or a newer one?
I don't know,
like middle,
but it's very minimalist.
Middle? Okay.
Middle.
It's very like non-magical realism, which is probably why he liked it. But it was really good.
I haven't read it, but my impressions is that it's kind of the same vibes as Norwegian Wood, there's no fantastical shit at all, really, and it's just a story about the people.
I see.
I liked it.
The one sort of critique I guess I have of Chris's approach, I do feel like sometimes he slides a little bit into the like big book, good book, like mentality, like bigger book, more words, better. More complicated, better.
I think if we're gonna level some friendly criticism, it would be the lit bro sort of preference of maximal kind of like heavy, and that's just good because someone did a lot of writing. And I would again come on the show, but Orpheus is guilty a little bit of like being, I think, a touch dour.
Everyone come on the show.
Everyone please come on the show.
Yeah.
you know, dismiss and this is what we were talking about earlier, you know, meaning I think detrimentally dismissive of things for not being again slotted into a category of heavy, serious, dense, whatever kind of like, you know, way you want to describe it.
Right.
And that being, again, the good use of their time, I think, in their consideration, right?
Right.
Like, the utility of being a literary person still then cuts down to, like, subcategories of, like, I won't read minimalist fiction because there's not as much words in it. You know what I mean? That kind of thing happens as well.
Right. I do. I mean, I do think, like, I'm not saying this about any of these people specifically, but I feel like it does get that simple for some people sometimes. They're like, this book's small and short, can't be that good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's true.
This book is like really thick. It has thick pages. It has giant font. I love it. Big all around.
That's why I love the chunky flat books, the kids for baby or the baby books that have, because they have the thickest pages because they're literally for sucking on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and maybe this is a different topic at this point, but I definitely have issues with the culture of like mystique and allure around some of these books that are just like, oh, it's just so big and they can't be understood by ordinary mortals, and you have to fucking you have to just like, you know, bow down and kiss the feet of Gaddis or whoever because it's
Did you know that the first
genius.
the first copy of Moby Dick was actually every page was made out of ivory?
No, is that literally true?
No.
Oh, I don't fucking know.
Damn it, Paul! That sounded cool as shit.
Yeah, dude, that sounded like sort of plausible.
Yeah.
Or at least that a copy like that exists somewhere.
Ah, we got it. He got us.
He got
Fuck.
us.
I got you.
God damn it.
My
Trickster
delivery was
Paul.
way too earnest. I'm sorry. Bad joke.
No, it was a good joke because you got
That
us.
would be a heavy book, though. You're right.
It would be very heavy.
Yeah.
It's like that book that Rihanna just released. It's like
What?
the size of a mattress. Yeah, look it up.
She made a huge book.
It's like a
huge
book of photography or something, I think.
It's not even it's like too big for a coffee table.
Yeah, hold on. Let me see if I can find it.
I hate photography so much I'm not even going to look at this link you're sending me.
Wow. Whoa. What's wrong with photography, Paul?
It's lame. I don't want to get into it.
That's fine.
It's a lesser art form. Anyone can do it.
Whoa, okay.
I think you just got into it.
Yeah. Just a little taste for everybody.
Just
Yeah, it's called.
Tune in next week.
Let's see, the Rihanna book. What's it called?
Let's review her big picture book and be like, I like these pictures.
I don't know. I think is it just called the Rihanna book?
I hope
That would be funny.
No, I don't know what it's called. Oh, I guess it's like a limited
Bookana.
Bookana is the laziest best joke.
Bookana.
Read Anna.
Yeah, it's called. There's a limited. I guess it was a limited edition. It's called Queen Size, and it's like literally the size of a mattress.
Who the fuck would has that?
There's only 500 copies in the world.
She's really, I guess she is pushing the limits of maximalist literature.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. There's a picture of her with it like next to a pool or something, and it's like literally the size of a mattress. It's insane.
That's so.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever
That's so
heard.
stupid.
It's so big.
I can't think of anything more dumb.
That's so stupid.
At this particular
I'm kind
moment.
of for it. I'm kind
Is
of
the
I'm kind of into it.
Are the
Not
pictures
at
cool?
all.
Here, let me send you a picture. Let me see if I can get a picture here. Here's one. Anyway, this is bad content.
Oh yeah. We
For the
shouldn't just be
people.
looking at Rihanna's photographs.
I can't find a good picture. Just Google it. But yeah, so I mean, but it's funny because I do think there's something there culturally about just like in literature, and it's just like, oh my god, bigger, better, big words, like more characters, plot is complicated, and I can't.
Yeah, exactly right. Like I'm such a dumb sub, you know. I'm being
dude,
domed by this book.
It is, dude. It's like a fetish. These people just love being domed by these like old geniuses.
Well,
that
the
they
other
can't
thing,
fucking interpret.
right? Well, first of all, yeah, it's like, I you know, it's like once again, I would call it another limiting perspective of like, you know, like something as famously incomprehensible, quote unquote, as like Finnegan's Wake or something, right? Like being one of these legendary texts for that reason. It's like it's long. It took him 1,000,000 years to write. It's gobbledygook.
There's
and I
references
love
to other cultures that we don't understand.
And like I don't think Joyce was like, I hope no one gets it.
Right.
Like I don't know. It's just like it's also just like almost it's like fetishizing the impenetrability is almost like a way of not also trying to actually just read it and know what it's about.
Well, I also think, and this is probably opening a can of worms, but like the very concept, and this is a problem that I have with even a lot of the booktubers that I like. I will put Orpheus in this group. The concept of getting it right, that there's one answer to what this is about, what was intended, and you have to sort of understand every aspect of the writing and the references and all of that, and then the answer, capital T, capital A, will sort of manifest itself to you because you've done the work. And I think that like it's that's I think false and harmful.
It's not math, you're not
exactly.
You're not plugging and chugging until you get to the answer.
Right.
I think there's like, I mean, again, I don't want to get into conversations about like intention versus reception and this kind of thing, but like,
we could,
I
no time. No, we don't have time for that.
I got nowhere to be. I'm joking. We'll do another one of these episodes at some point.
Maybe, yeah. We'll get some more celebrity people to ask us questions.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
No, what was my train of thought here?
Sorry.
I'm just trying to remember.
Just like the concept of like getting a book and like fucking, I don't know.
Oh, and yeah, like
subjective
right. There's
criticism.
You're not gonna like part of one of the problems of like I don't know if they still do this or whatever, but right, like part of the unpack what is annoying about the unpacking thing and why I think academia also like a bit kills the enjoyment in its cradle a bit, and which is why a lot of people stop reading when they get into higher ed and stuff, weirdly enough. Is that you're not again finding the gears of the thing and like seeing an answer. It's more like, but the author is still I would say like is trying to impart something very specific usually. You know what I mean?
You're saying you think that, or that's the attitude of academia?
I think that, you know what I mean? Like, there is an intention there. It could be like, wide and have a lot to it. So it's not quite like a number
right
appearing at the end of something. You're like, I got it.
Right.
But there's a direction that you maybe you could have been led to or something. You know what I mean? Like something vaguer in a good way. Like,
yeah. I mean, I guess like. Yeah, God, maybe we do have. I mean, you're inviting it. You're inviting getting into this a little bit.
I don't want to get into it right now because it's going to be huge.
we don't have to go too deep into it, I guess. But I guess what I would say is that like, and again, this is a debate that's been hashed and rehashed. There's postmodernism and fucking intention and Bart and all that shit. But it, certainly it seems like the reasonable attitude is that intention of the author matters, but it's one factor among many. And I don't think there's really any particular reason to even prioritize it, right? Like we can read a book. I can't think of a good example off the top of my head right now, but like say we read a book, and there's something that happens in the book, and we're like, this is about this resonates with TikTok fame today, right? Is the book about TikTok fame? I don't even really know what that means, right? Or does, like, okay, probably not. Probably wasn't written when TikTok was a thing, right? But does that mean that it has nothing to say or can't inform our thinking about these topics? I don't think so. And I think that that's where the limits of the sort of like, I get it. I get what Joyce meant. I get what David Foster Wallace meant. Because there are things, and this is just the way language works, this is the way culture works, this is the way history works, there are things that we say that we don't mean to say. There are things that we do that have implications that we don't intend. That's just how human behavior works. That's how language works. And I think that the sort of like, my goal here is to get exactly what this person meant, and that's it, and that's the end of the story.
Right.
I think that's limiting and not super helpful.
Yeah.
Well, I think that like, oh, sorry, Matt.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, like, I think something written, 150 years ago, the author's intent could have been one thing, but it can be more culturally analogous to something that's happening now or something that happened in the 80s. Like, I think that's all I was trying to say. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't think of a particular book right now, but I think it came up when we were reading Dickens, maybe? I don't know. But there's plenty of novels out there that I can't think of right now. But, like, yeah. The author, of course, wasn't thinking about what's going to be the cultural landscape 100 years from their time. But it can line up, culturally, politically, socially in 100 years from from the time they wrote it. So I don't know exactly what that means, but it does take the author's intent out of it a bit, because you can still get something very useful from it.
And I would also just throw in that it can also be true of an author's own time, that they can be subconsciously or unknowingly like there's Lord of the Rings is a famous example, right? Like Tolkien famously is like, this is not an allegory about World War. This is not what I was writing about, but of course it is, whether he says it is or not. Period.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to think about it further. I have like just a twinge of disagreement that I am having trouble like verbalizing right now.
I'm not.
I think we just established that we both have like a sort of inverted version of what's prioritized, but it's not like emphasized. It's just like what you get to in what sequence, maybe. Where you expand outward from the source of the writing, which is my opinion, which is like, just because an author, I don't know, I'd say it's even something to speak for the author, like that their ideas through time are still able to be applied in ways that are valid, even though that person didn't have to like predict the future or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe here's the disagreement to the degree that there is one, because I definitely agree that it's about whatever, concentric circles and making connections and all that shit. But I guess for me at this point, the way that I like to read generally is not starting with the text and expanding outward, but starting with the context and situating the text first. So again, it's not that one is prioritized, it's just what's your entry point, what's your starting sort of concern.
Yeah, I just how wide do you go if you're starting from like the quote unquote historical context perspective?
I would want to know at least something about the author's sort of personal history, their class status, their racial background, if that's relevant. What country are they writing in? What period of history? Where are they in literary history? That's really all I mean. And then you go from there.
That's good, but I think that still means that the locus of interpretation is on a personage, right? Maybe they're like not. It's not just their pure brain, just pure perfect communication. But I'd say it still means that the author is important.
Yeah, of course, and I don't disagree with that at all. But again, all of that stuff I said doesn't really have anything to do with intent.
Sure, you're right.
And I think that's kind of the one of the sort of focuses of where people tend to disagree about this topic.
Yeah, and I definitely don't think there's, like you said, just like, we got it, we found him.
Right,
the little leprechaun of meaning that's been running around in the pages hiding.
We excavated the gold nugget of meaning.
Yeah, and now I'm all done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a thing that moves through time and is like interpenetrated by like everything. So yeah, I don't know. Which I didn't study philosophy, so I don't. Is that what Derrida thinks?
Well, I don't want to talk about for sure.
Okay.
Derrida.
See, because I
Derrida.
I didn't really describe before, but
dog.
Like I was definitely an escapist reader when I was young, and then I kept doing it just because it was a habit for the most part. I was absolutely uncritically just reading fantasy and sci-fi like solely.
Yeah,
when
you were a sci-fi dude.
From like probably 7 to like around 12, I was like, just anything, you know. So I did all the classics, you know, like Tolkien and fucking Dune and the Star Wars expanded universe, all of it, Arthur C. Clarke and shit, and that somehow segued into like literary with a capital L stuff, whatever that is.
Right.
But so then I kept reading though because I just went to undergrad and then just whatever graduated, and I was afraid that my brain was going to atrophy, and so like almost through like a weird anxiety, I just read consistently until now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of more where it is. Yeah, I was deeply afraid of the rut of like being all done and like clapping my hands of the dust and just sitting down. You know what I mean? And just being like, all good. I'm the guy that I am, and it's time to stop. And I read all the books. Yeah, it just I was less so now. I mean, it's still like a controlling anxiety a little bit, but yeah, I was like, oh no, I don't want to be stodgy and just stuck in my ways.
I think that's healthy.
Yeah, I don't know. People's educations should not be regarded as over, right? You know, because you went through the institutions. It should just be a thing that keeps happening.
Yes, I definitely think that is an attitude people. This goes way beyond literature, but yeah, people are like, I did college, I'm done. Done learning, done thinking.
But this does aid me.
That's similar attitude than what I was saying too earlier, Matt, about why I like reading. I just don't want to become an old person that's just stopped doing things and just staring at the Price is Right all day or something.
Yeah, it's just I feel like reading is just a win across the board. You know? Yeah. It's just like you can have fun.
Reading is a big dub.
It's just a big ass dub, dude, and everyone needs to get involved and do it.
Well, I think especially in our, TikTok, internet, YouTube world of Gen
go off.
Z.
Let's do it.
I really do think that it's useful. Everyone has like such a high level of frequency in their head, and reading just like, it calms you down. It's like having, not calms you down, but it makes you're thinking and engaging in something in a much different way than you're used to, especially if you haven't been a reader.
Yeah, your mind is being used in a different, far more slow and intentional, but like difficult way, a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I think even I still have trouble like ADHD type issues. Like I have to read this page again because I was thinking about YouTube or not really, but my mind's like jumping around. I think is a common thing, but
yeah, totally. I think it's just sort of culturally hostile and sus to be sitting down quietly and reading something, and just as a medium, it's just, it doesn't go, you know what I mean? Like it just requires just you can sit, you can think about something. It doesn't just keep moving. Like you can reread and all this kind of stuff. It's just as a medium, it's just it actually lends itself to, the slower process of your thoughts.
Yeah.
And we're not and you don't become a zoomer.
Yeah, you're not a zoomer. Zoomer.
Doomer, zoomer, coomer.
Who can only read like the first sentence of someone's Instagram description, and then they have to like sign on to TikTok and then sign on to YouTube.
I disagree.
I hate Gen Z.
I love zoomers.
I hate them.
I don't have an opinion really. I don't know any.
That's true.
I hate the youth. I think all children should be eliminated.
Jesus Christ.
I think that, but I think that's because people should stop having them.
I know. I think that it should be one step further, where they should stop having them, and all the recent ones should be murdered.
That's a take, dude. That's a take.
So as you can tell, reading increases empathy, which is another thing that gets touted around a lot. I actually hated that. I was talking to some guy, and I was reading at a bar, not
cringe, dude.
I know.
Oh, that's cringe. That's boomer.
But what's even more cringe is
I do too.
Yeah, I like it a lot. But the guy's like, "Oh, dude, what's that? Dude, fucking yeah. Like, my favorite book is whatever." And then he was earnestly. I heard, like, I was listening to a podcast on like the brain, and like I heard that like reading makes you like more empathetic to human beings. And
Oh God.
do you think that's true?
I have no idea. I don't know. The leap there seems pretty big.
Like that someone's subjectivity created a thing you're reading, and therefore like you inhabit other people's minds and can like sympathize with them. I guess
I could see it, but my first reaction to that encounter is that guy sounds like a neuroscience bro who's like,
Yeah.
yo, what are the ways that I can like increase my empathy quotient? And like,
Yeah.
is he reading?
he's just looking at his Enneagram like
Yeah,
chart
exactly.
or whatever, and just
Oh
being
my
like, dude, I
God.
can max out this stat so good if I read.
Yeah, exactly, dude, exactly.
Yeah. So those are another type of person to maybe avoid.
Yes.
The stat min max guy.
Yeah.
That just made me think, like, why didn't in Harry Potter? Why didn't they make
INFP,
like
dude.
an empathy potion for Voldemort? That would
Wow.
have been the best course of action. Let's make an empathy potion.
Is
Harry.
that a thing in the Harry Potter universe, dude?
No, but why couldn't it be?
I don't know. It could be. Why not? It's all made up. Who cares?
It sounds like J.K. Rowling didn't use her imagination enough
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
to figure out how to stop her own villain she made. She fucking
All I'm
made
saying
up.
is, if you can make a love potion, you can make an empathy potion.
Maybe. I could see it.
Yeah.
Just douse
'cause
that
you-
Voldemort
Just make him, just cover him with it.
with the
It's
potion.
like a protest when vegans throw blood on people wearing fur.
Yeah.
Just do it. Just do it with Voldemort and the empathy potion.
He grows his nose back, and everything's okay.
Yeah, why did he turn into a lizard?
Well, because he
I think it's
wasn't a-
because his soul was ripped apart,
yeah,
and he
yeah.
just kind of like turned evil looking.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'll buy it.
Here's a question. What Zoomer, what is Zoomer fiction going to look like when they start writing books?
Well, we read the closest thing, which was
Luster?
Luster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the Zoomer book's just going to be called Let's Go.
Fucking no.
And it's just going to be like horrific. I don't know.
I don't know. My thing with the Zoomers. Oh, that millennial fiction thing in Luster reminded me of another BookTube channel that I like. She did a couple of videos on millennial
Oh,
fiction.
yeah. Yeah.
Claire, I think the channel is just Claire Reads Books. Hold on.
Yeah, that's a decent channel.
She's good. She's thoughtful, and I like what she has. So hey, come on the show.
Mhm.
She did a couple good. The reason I found the channel is because we were reading Luster, and I was looking for videos on it, and she did a video on millennial fiction, couple videos I think, and I thought they were good. So go check out Claire Reads Books. But anyway, I do think about the like Zoomer thing and the like, oh, they can't read or they don't appreciate it. Like, don't get me wrong, there are reasons to be down on the world and thinking that it legitimately might end relatively soon. But Zoomers not being artistic enough or not appreciating art is not on the list. It's just, like I just watched the new like Bo Burnham special, and he has all this shit about Zoomers and TikTok and the internet. I'm like, okay, whatever. Yeah, maybe the internet's bad. I don't really know. On balance, it's not great, maybe. But it's not, it's just there's always panic about the next generation. The Zoomers are going to be panicking about whatever the next generation that comes after them is. And how they're going to destroy the world, and how
They're out of letters.
How they suck, and they can't appreciate art or whatever.
Well,
And
to defend myself
I
a little
resist
bit,
that impulse.
to defend myself a little bit, I hate like every generation, almost equally. So
Paul's a
I'm just
misanthrope.
giving
I think
them
that's
shit,
sick.
but I hate millennials. I hate boomers. I
What about the greatest
generally just don't
generation?
like people. Yeah, I don't like them either.
What about the silent generation? Is that the same? No.
No. Silent Generation was like
Is that like
50s?
50s or something. I don't know.
Yeah. See, this is what I was saying. This guy who was talking about empathy is wrong.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I have zero empathy, and generally I just don't like most human beings. So when I'm giving people Zoomers shit, it's fine. I hate everybody.
I just
lied.
don't know any.
The Silent Generation was the one before
The greatest
Baby
generation.
Boomers. It was right
Okay.
before Baby Boomers.
So that's like 40.
Greatest generation. It goes Greatest Generation, Silent Generation, Boomers, Gen X, Millennial, Z.
And now we're out of letters.
What generation was Jesus in?
the greatest. The really
greatest.
greatest.
Yeah.
And it was only on his birthday. That was the only time frame for the generation to be
That's right.
spawned.
That's right.
But yeah, I agree with you, Gabe. I think it's pretty standard operating procedure to look with suspicion on another generation coming up with like new assumptions and cultural references and stuff. It's just like, I don't know what the fuck. I mean, I think on par the internet is probably bad in my opinion, but that's about all I can say. And they were raised more on it than I was. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
But look at I have a kid brother. He's kind of a Zoomer. He's all right.
I haven't met him since he was literally a baby, so.
He's a good boy now.
He's a good boy.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he's not thoughtful and loves TikTok. He's not like, but he might be an anomaly. I don't know.
But whatever. Loving TikTok's not automatically bad.
No. Some funny shit on there.
Yeah, dude, TikTok's funny. What else should we talk about, book-wise? Do you guys want to talk about your favorite genres or books or anything else? How we read, styles of reading? That's a fun one. How do you guys read physically? What's your physical position when you read? Because I feel strongly about this issue, actually.
I sit in a rocking chair.
And how do you hold the book? Like up with your two hands like this?
No, like in my lap, like above my penis.
Nice.
Dude.
I like to one-hand it, even if it's pretty big.
You one-hand it, dude.
One-hand it?
Damn. That's fucking...
That's odd.
You must be jacked.
I'm huge, because I only read the biggest books, too.
That's right.
What are you doing with your other hand?
I don't want to know.
Is it like on your hip? Are you reading like that?
Yeah, arm akimbo, one of them. I'm having that coffee with the other hand.
Oh, God.
Are you pincing your nipples?
Shut up. Don't make this weird. No, I like to lay down.
Dude, me too.
I lay down, and the book is hovering above my face.
So you lay on your back, though?
Yeah, with a little bit of sort of, prop. On the lower back or upper back.
I can do that for a little while, but I basically exclusively read lying down either on my stomach or on my side.
Yeah?
Like a little 12-year-old girl.
I love kicking up my feet, propping the book up on a pillow, and just going like this as I read pages.
I love that. It's 12-year-old
It's
style.
the most comfortable for me, dude.
I mean,
people who like sit with the book and hold it in their hands for long periods of time, I'm like, the blood is draining from my hands. This is hard. I'm fat and out of shape. I can't hold the book there for very long.
Yeah, I can do I can do a little tummy time myself.
Love the tummy time.
I don't know why I don't go for that though. For whatever reason, it's not as comfortable as.
I sometimes read
me.
it on my back, laying down on my back, propped up like that, like you. Like that's good. I can do that.
Can you guys?
But yeah, I'm
read
also
in, like,
old. It's
a crowded space. Like I want to be able
usually.
to read at like a coffee shop or a bar. But
Oh
I
God,
can't.
no. I mean, I could read at a
I'm
bar
distracted.
if I wanted to, like keep it on the thing. Like I could do that in terms of a comfort level and in terms of but it's cringe, so I'm not going to. Sorry.
It's not cringe. It's not cringe. Paul, you're with me on this, right? It's like
Well,
I can't do
don't
the
think
coffee
it's
shop
cringe.
thing. No,
I don't
it's
think it's
nice.
I just can't do it because I'm like paying attention to what people are saying and think I get too distracted by the ambient noise of other conversations and
I guess
what's going
okay.
on.
We're going to put up a Twitter poll today. Is reading in a bar cringe?
Can I qualify it a bit, just a little bit? I'm not talking about like a thronged dive bar like on Friday night.
No, I know.
I'm talking about cute little like maybe a little afternoon drink, smattering of people quietly talking.
Well, like at the
nice
brewery.
vibes.
Like the brewery
Exactly.
that we go to. That's like very quiet. There's like no
That
one
place
there.
literally
You can
has
sit
big
outside.
leather couches and stuff. Like it's so oriented
Wait, the
towards.
place we went to, Paul?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess the inside,
With
yeah.
the picnic tables.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
a lot of time people aren't there, and so it's nice just sitting outside.
So that's what I mean.
It's less cringe, but still cringe.
No, you're being unreasonable right now.
Yeah.
You think it's cringe because people would think that you're flexing or something? What's
I mean,
the
a little bit. And that's what I think when I see someone reading in a bar. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it's probably some unfair biases that I have or something. But I guess my vibe when I see someone reading is in the bar is that in their mind, and I know this isn't you, Matt, I'm not saying this is you, but in general, my vibe is that in their mind, they're just begging anyone to come up and ask them what they're reading. You know what I mean? They just want someone to come over and be like, oh my God, ideally someone that they would want to have sex with. And just like, oh, what is that? Like, tell me what you're reading. Like, I'm so interested. Like, it's so weird and quirky that you're reading in a bar, and that's crazy.
It's like wearing
That's
your
not
most...
the worst thing, though.
It's also, yeah.
That's not the worst. I mean, as a single, lonely, depressed person as myself, I've done that many, and I've had some conversations with people, and it's like, fine. Like, I don't know anyone in my town. It's like, I don't care. I'm gonna do it.
I don't want to interact with anyone.
I'm not saying I wouldn't do it if I was in that position, but I'm saying I would feel bad about doing it.
When
I do feel a little cringy. I will say. I admit it. There's an ounce of it.
I will get twinges of it, which means that there's some sort of awareness of that as a look.
Yeah.
But that's not to be followed through and not do what I love, which is having a beer and reading my book.
Chug beers.
Alone. When I lived in New York City and I take the subway, I was guilty of both. Like, I had to look at the covers. I would never talk to anybody, but anytime anyone was reading a book, I really wanted to know what it was every time.
Oh yeah.
How many times did you see Infinite Jest on the subway?
Like literally, I think once over like a long.
Wow.
Yeah. People don't. First of all, people don't read that book; they just have it.
No one's ever read that book.
That's true.
It's like Gravity's Rainbow and shit. A lot of people just have it literally as a flex, or to be read. But then, like that horrible moment, because reading in the subway is one of the moments you can, especially when I was commuting, and one of the worst things ever was, especially on my fucking morning commute, that you can already, like, before they even say something, the person sort of shifting to talk to you about it.
Oh God, yeah.
And I'm just like, please don't.
I definitely, when I lived in the city, I definitely read on the subway, but I always made it a point, partially for that reason, to keep the cover not visible. I put it on my lap. No one could see what it was.
Nice.
Nice.
So
antisocial, good.
That seems like we're a little bit contradicting our earlier discussion about like the communal nature of reading and how it should be emphasized more. But
but not in that way.
Not with randos on the fucking subway.
Yeah.
No, I believe in like love thy neighbor, but don't talk to your neighbor and don't let your neighbor talk to you. That's really true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be nice, but snub thy neighbor.
That's right.
Yeah.
But
respect them by never talking to them.
The other reason I can't read, that I like to read on my stomach, is because I can't read with one hand, or I guess I could, but like anytime I read anything, have to have a pen with me.
Yeah.
Because I take notes, I mark shit. My books are destroyed. Like they're cracked and pages are dog-eared and everything is written in, because that's just, again, I think that's partially like the academic training thing. Like I can't not read a text without taking notes on it as I'm reading it, which I know some people, I think Cliff, you're not getting the raw experience of the and
fluids.
I just don't care.
The blood. You're not drinking the blood of the book.
The blood. And
This book doesn't have enough blood or fluids in it.
Yeah, that's right. Bloodless, literally.
Yeah.
Well, Gabe, you also told me that you actually like run your pen along each line as you're reading, which is that true?
That's not 100% constant, but I often do that. Yeah.
I cannot do that. I tried it, and it's like distracting. It's like I'm doing too many things at once.
It's helpful.
How do I move my eyes and my hand at the same time?
Yeah.
Dude, it's like playing video games, dude. Hand-eye coordination.
Yeah. It's not possible.
It's not possible.
It's not possible. But yeah, I think I'd probably read the most basic. I just sit in a chair, rocking chair.
That's classic, dude. That's classic reading.
On the porch.
Chair is a nice move, though. You like dedicated light and a little like coziness. Yeah, maybe another way people can get into it is like through literal physical coziness. Like try and make the comfiest fucking situation possible so you physically have a pleasurable reading experience.
Yeah.
I will admit too
matters
that if I can't fall asleep at night, I leave the Lord of the Rings: Fellowship of the Ring next to my bedside, and I'll read that.
Hell yeah,
on my
That's
and
good.
fall asleep usually. Just read about, trees and camping.
Bombadil.
And leaves. Tom Bombadil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great book.
I don't know.
What
That's
else?
all.
I think,
Yeah.
What do we think, boys? Any other insights? Any thoughts? Any other topics?
What else did you have written down?
That's most of it. I had if we wanted to talk about genres or authors or whatever, but we're already at 2 hours, man. This is pretty solid.
Yeah.
And
Let's,
it's good that there's still material. We can do another one of these episodes at some point.
yeah. I don't have much to say in the general aside from getting into like stuff that I'm also would love to familiarize myself with more about, like, theory. Like I don't know a lot of lit theory or anything.
Don't read Bloom, dude. Bloom is ass. Everyone,
Dude.
it jizzes. This is another problem I have with BookTube, dude. All these people, they're like, oh, literary theory, and all they're ever fucking talking about is fucking Bloom. And Bloom sucks. Bloom is a dumbass, idiot loser. That's on the fucking record.
I don't know what to say. I don't think I've read any Bloom. I know he just wrote a thing on Shakespeare, and is
Shocking.
well regarded. I think Northrop Frye is the. I have a copy of his book. I think that's the. I'm excited to read that one.
Yeah, Fry is better for sure.
You've read him?
Some. I don't know what book you have.
The one, the famous one.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called. It's the
No,
one
me
about
either.
literature.
It was years ago.
Yeah.
But I think he's better. Bloom sucks. Don't read Bloom. And the reason that people like Bloom, partially, I think, especially people like Cliff, is because Bloom is like, Bloom, especially in recent years, Bloom has gone on this kind of like anti-SJW, fucking all these people writing about social topics. It's cringe and it's bad. Like, just make great art. Just be someone who creates great art.
Yeah.
Why are you making it political, man? Like, he's basically the equivalent of like Mahler.
That's brutal. That can't be true.
He is. No, he is. Especially a lot of his recent output is very kind of like, oh, don't bring your politics into my fucking literature. Like, almost literally, almost verbatim. And it's just so dumb.
Mm. And he's a Gnostic, and Gnosis is stupid.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll tell you what's cringe: Gnosticism. Right,
Very
guys?
Gnostic cringism.
Yeah. Yes. Perfect. Flows.
Yeah. Nosferatu is cringe.
Yeah.
No, Nosferatu's awesome.
Yeah, no, Bloom sucks.
I don't know.
The whole thing about it's all Western canon shit. I forget the term he used, the like culture of resentment or whatever, where he was talking about people who want to analyze literature from a feminist or a Marxist, or talk about cultural issues and doing literary analysis, and he's just like, oh, you're just mad, basically. You're coping.
Yeah.
It's stupid, and he sucks.
So he's like psychoanalyzing people?
No, not even. Kind of, but it's basically just any idiot on YouTube who says that Disney princesses shouldn't be black. Like, Bloom totally would agree with that. Bloom would be all on board with no black Disney princesses.
Who's a good person?
So he's a racist man.
Probably, yeah. I think.
Sounds like a racist guy.
Who's a good person to read, though?
Maybe we should do an episode about this and talk about it a little more, or a YouTube video or something. But I don't know, man. I like Derrida. I do, and I like a lot of people who are kind of in that kind of school. Read Bart. I think read Bart, Death of the Author, SZ, where he analyzes the Balzac novella, like all that shit. I like that stuff a lot better than the sort of just like. And this is yet another problem that I have with Cliff, is that he's all about just Western canon good, read the good books, and you don't get to decide, right? The good books have already been decided for you by Bloom and me and whoever. And if you don't, it's just so stupid.
Yeah. Again, it's funny because I try and square my opinion that there is some sort of like, unfortunately or not, like, there are just books that have had outsized influence and would be good to read, and that like loosely defines a kind of canon. But at the same time, like to then say like this is the prescription that's like all it is, feels pretty like self-defeating in a weird way.
And and there's different things, right? Like there's just like that's what you just said is objectively true, but it's just a historical fact. It's not a judgment of merit per se, right? Like there's lots of shit that has had outsized historical impact, but it's a separate question. And so if you want to say, you know, I've well read in literature, whatever, we can talk about that, right? Like what books you have to quote unquote have to read or should read, whatever. That's a separate issue. But the idea that but the problem with Bloom and Cliff and all of the people who think this way is that they think that these books have had outsized historical impact purely because they are, in some cosmic, objective sense, the best books. And they've earned their outsized historical influence purely because of their quality and have nothing to do with context or the development of, like, literature departments in the university system or whatever. And that's fucking bullshit.
Yeah, I agree. So, guys... Don't take the bait, I guess. I don't know.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't take the pill.
We can talk more about it at some later date for sure. I think that'd be an interesting episode, but we can get into the weeds.
I know, but if I'm gonna talk about theory, man, I gotta read a little bit of it.
No,
that's my problem.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I do. I mean, a little bit. I'm not just gonna talk out my fucking ass about it.
Just a little bit.
You know, even if it's to go like, I hate this, I want to be specific, which is something you said, Gabe, you know?
Yeah, true. Well, we can do an episode. Maybe we should do an episode on some Bloom book at some point.
We'll do the Shakespeare one, maybe. Whatever the big one is.
Yeah.
Or no, I guess he has one that's just like Agon or something, the Western canon.
We
could do the Western canon
I think we
one.
should do the Western canon.
Because that's something that Chris also...
loves it.
Loves, you know?
Yeah. No, I don't like it.
It's you separate like there's good books in the canon with the concept of the Western canon.
Yeah, totally.
That's all you have to do, right? It's tough though.
Well, but you also need to explain what a good book is, which is a separate issue.
Yeah.
All right, should we call it?
Let's call it, man.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we're back. Thanks for listening to this brand new kind of getting back into the groove episode. We'll be back next week with Virginia Woolf, Mrs. Dalloway.
Yeah.
So we got some fucking hitters coming up, dude.
We got two literal classics for you coming up.
Yeah.
Mrs. Doubtfire.
Mrs. Doubtfire and
written by Robin Williams. Can't wait.
F in the chat. R.I.P.
Ooh, silent desperation.
So, oh god.
Ooh, PTSD. Oh, F planes in the sky. So if you liked that, get ready for next week.
We're back. The Spinecrackers are back. Don't call it a spine crack. We've been here for years.
Ooh, little rhyme
and
time.
go subscribe to our YouTube channel. As we said, we're gonna get back. We're gonna get back on making YouTube videos, and Patreon.com/Spinecrackers, Twitter, Instagram. Hope you missed us. We missed you.
Yeah. We blew the dust off of this thing, and we're back at it.
The summer dust.
Yeah, baby.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's still summer. It's still hot as shit.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I love it.
All right, boys.
All right.
Good to see you.
One love. Good to see you guys. Thanks for listening to the Spinecrackers. This episode of the Spinecrackers show.
Yes. Good night, all.